You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Brian Craig, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. And, of course, the Brian Craig Show podcast is brought to you by MyPillow, where with our promo code KANE at checkout, KANE at MyPillow.com, you can save up to 80% off the MyPillow products you see there with our promo code KANE at checkout. And we're also brought to you by our Patreon supporters. So thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Okay, Robert Kennedy Jr. made a big announcement today that he's being denied Secret Service protection by the Biden regime. I'm going to read this article that talks about it. I'll just tell you this. Presidential candidates are entitled to Secret Service protection, and presidential candidates, even wackadoodle ones, I'm not saying Robert Kennedy Jr. is a wackadoodle, but I'm talking about even fringe, presidential candidates all receive Secret Service protection because of the murder of Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s father. He was a presidential candidate.
Crazy.
He did not have Secret Service protection, and then look what happened.
That's right.
And this is outrageous. I'm going to read through this article, and I'll tell you why I think they're denying him Secret Service protection. Robert Kennedy Jr. announced Friday on Twitter that the Biden administration has still not provided his campaign with Secret Service protection. Robert Kennedy says he's made several requests, and they've received no response after 88 days.
Wow.
This is unconscionable, Robert Kennedy Jr. He said this. Since the assassination of my father in 1968, right, what I just told you, candidates for president are provided Secret Service protection, but not me. Typical turnaround time for protection requests from presidential candidates is 14 days. After 88 days of no response and after several follow-ups by our campaign, the Biden administration just denied our request. Secretary Mayorkas says, I have determined that Secret Service protection for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not warranted at this time. Our campaign's request included a 67-page report from the world's leading protection firm detailing unique and well-established security and safety risks aside from commonplace death threats. I'll go into more detail from the article, but here's the thing. The reason they don't want to give him Secret Service protection is because that gives him credibility and legitimacy as a candidate.
Right.
And obviously his father and his uncle were both assassinated. He's running for president. His father was assassinated while he was a presidential candidate. The very fact that he's running puts him at a greater risk than any other presidential candidate we've had in a long time because, you know, there's copycat lunatics out there. And
absolutely,
you've got the Kennedys and his father in particular, what happened. And this is, you know, we've got gangsters running this government right now. And I was watching.
It's really sickening.
Yeah. I was watching a story on the Bidens today on Hunter and his crimes and what's going on in court. And they showed him and his scummy dad, and I said, you know, what makes me the sickest about these two scummy people, Joe and Hunter, is that they have no shame. They're not a normal person would be embarrassed about all these things that are coming out, right? These nude pictures of him, these crimes. They just don't care. They have no shame. They're not even embarrassed by their actions.
Do you know why that is?
Because they're sickos.
Well, that, and they've never been held accountable for any of their behavior. They've never had to answer to anybody, especially Hunter. He is, and probably Joe, but I mean, Hunter, his father enables him and doesn't discipline him, probably never has. And just whenever he does something wrong, he just takes care of it. They've never been accountable. They're still not. So they've never had to answer to anybody. So there is shame or guilt or anything like the rest of us feel. Plus, that's sociopathic behavior when you don't feel guilt or shame or empathy towards others.
Well, yes,
so that's clearly the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
So they're denying Robert Kennedy Jr. Secret Service protection, and he needs it really bad because of his dad, his whole family. And the Secret Service have been play toys of Biden for a long time. When Hunter, this all came out from the laptop. when Hunter was at that Beverly Hills hotel and he paid the prostitute with his dad's credit card like 5 times because he didn't think the car was going through because he was high, and it was tens of thousands of dollars to the prostitute. He was in the
what is she doing? Well, for listen, that kind of money. My God!
If you go and get Laptop from Hell, this is detailed in the book, and I recommend with Laptop from Hell you get the audio book. It's better than the print book because the guy that narrates it's very good and it's more dramatic. But Hunter was passed out in the hotel room, and Joe and his people found out that he had paid this hooker with Joe Biden's credit card. So 2 former Secret Service men who one of them used to be the head of the Secret Service were sent by Joe to this hotel to get control of Hunter, and they did it. And I mean, that's how. So he uses they're like his servants, the Secret Service, Joe Biden. And I think this is unconscionable that they will not give Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, but hold on, back up. Why is he paying her tens of thousands of dollars? Is this some kind of payoff, and he just gets a hooker as a benefit?
No, he didn't think. No. He didn't think that there was. When he put the charge through, he didn't think the charge went through. The hooker didn't think the charge went through.
So it went through multiple
times. So they put it through like 5 times.
I got you.
Yeah.
So did he get a refund?
They did return some of it. Yeah. And it was on his dad's credit cards. Paying. So Joe's paying for his hookers.
Interesting.
But this is unconscionable that they won't give Robert Kennedy Secret Service protection. And, the thing about it is, I know they like to say we don't have royalty in this country. We have high-profile people in this country. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is very high-profile. And just because of the experience of his father and his uncle, in particular his father, because he was a candidate, it should even be a question. He should have a detail. All the rest of them do.
Yeah. And I think he'll end up getting it because obviously.
Well, because it's high profile now.
People know about it, and I think he'll end up getting it.
It shows you how nasty and petty the Bidens are. I know every time there's a president, half the country love him, half the country hate him.
Right.
And the half that don't like that particular president think they're bad. We've had bad people as president. There's no doubt about it. Okay. Bill Clinton was just a sexual deviant who did a terrible thing. But we've never had someone at the level of Joe Biden. Joe Biden isn't just a sexual pervert and deviant like Bill Clinton. He's also a criminal who takes bribes. And the best comparison I could make between Biden and his family, he's like Saddam Hussein, and Hunter is like one of Saddam Hussein's sons who would do. Remember, Saddam Hussein's sons, both of them were just terrible people who did terrible things. And I saw some footage on TV today of Hunter at the White House, and everyone's just sucking up to him and greeting him. And I'm thinking, who would want to shake the hand of Hunter Biden?
I wouldn't want to go near him.
No. And you see,
he's gross.
Like today in the news, McCarthy said, "Oh well, there may be an impeachment proceeding." They impeached President Trump over nothing. This guy took a $10 million bribe. They know it, and they've got the evidence, and they're still debating whether or not.
Well, I think what you said
they're going to impeach him.
Well, they're not going to. McCarthy, they're not going to do it. I think what you said this morning was spot on when you said that they're accusing Trump of deleting, wiping a server, which is what Hillary did, by the way, and nothing. She didn't get indicted, and they're saying that he wiped the evidence. Well, what you said is true. They have no evidence, and they're going to use this as an excuse now that there's no evidence because Trump destroyed it. No, there is no evidence. And you're right. This is right out of the All for President's Men playbook, which is what Strzok and his girlfriend, Lisa Page, were talking about. And clearly, they're still going on with that. But he added this on to his charges with I'm assuming with the judge in Fort Pierce, right? It's on those charges. So I think all this is going to all fall apart for them. And, we won't find out till next year. But I did read today, there was an article that Trump has said, and I'll pull it up because I have it in the Facebook group. Trump has said that he will run even if he is indicted and convicted.
And in prison.
I had the article.
You don't need the article. It's fine. He said he'll run even if he's in prison. Well,
even if he's convicted, he said he's still going to run. So nothing's going to stop this.
This is not a slam dunk because I've been saying this for 2 years, over 2 years now. Their whole strategy is to find a scheme to keep President Trump off the ballot in the primaries. And the way it works, okay, the delegates that you get at the convention are the primary states you win, right? So if they keep him off the ballots in a couple of primary states, if they're the right, he won't have enough delegates to get the nomination. That's their scheme.
Well, Mitt Romney's working on that. Dinesh D'Souza put an article out on Twitter that Mitt Romney is working with the other people running to take delegates and to do things. And he's got some scheme going with them during the primary. And, you know, it's amazing to me how obsessed these people are with Donald Trump. I don't understand. You deal with this on a small scale with the radio show. You have certain listeners, and they're all men. We're all obsessed with you and trying to destroy you and make you look bad.
My stalkers.
You're stalkers. And it's I don't know what it is about men that get triggered by successful men. And they just like get hell bent.
Is that why I have stalkers, because I'm successful?
Well, yeah, it's part of it, for sure. And good looking. Maybe that has something to do with it. But people like Mitt Romney, I don't understand his obsession other than pure jealousy. I think a lot has to do with pure jealousy. Trump achieved what he never could. And I think he's bitter and angry and pissed off about it. And he is just absolutely obsessed. So he's running some kind of scheme with the delegates and things with the other people running that are in this. So I think it's a fantasy. I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think it's going to play out to the way they want it to. They're all manipulating and scheming and conniving constantly behind the scenes. It's just amazing to me how much energy is expelled and wasted on one. I love Trump, but I mean, they could do so many other good things with their positions in life than just, I mean, big deal. He wins again. He's president for 4 years. I mean,
Kathy,
when he was president before, Kathy, what did he do that was so horrible to this country?
Well, what he messed up. I mean,
what did he do?
The reason a lot that upset.
What can he do in 4 years again? That's it. He'd be done after that.
Just one thing that they're panicked about is he'll stop the war in Ukraine, which they're making $1 trillion off of. They're all on the take for Ukraine. Stopping the war in Ukraine would stop the military-industrial complex donors making their money that they're paying off all the politicians in Washington with. So that alone is a big. I want to play this clip.
They're obsessed.
Megyn Kelly interviewed DeSanctimonious. I'm so disappointed in Ron DeSantis. And
this interview's on YouTube too.
Yeah,
so people don't want to watch it.
I watched some of it because I felt obligated to, because I talk about the guy. But this is just one clip. This is Ron DeSantis talking to Megyn Kelly.
You said Trump should have done more on January 6th. Like what?
Well, look, I think it's been well documented, kind of his conduct when it first started, how he sat there, could have obviously leaned in harder. I mean, even his own kids were texting saying, he needs to do more, he needs to do more. Is that criminal, though? I mean, that's the thing when you talk about a grand jury and a potential criminal indictment.
Okay, let me tell you about what he says there. That's very dishonest, what he said there. I'm going to go in reverse. He talked about his kids were even telling him you got to do more about this. That's not exactly the truth, okay? Let me tell you what happened on January 6th.
Yeah.
President Trump, it was a national emergency, obviously, what's happened at the Capitol. President Trump's at the White House, and the White House, they get briefed on what's going on in the Situation Room by watching live news and real-time information coming in through old-fashioned forces. What happened with Trump's kids, Don Jr., Eric, and Melania, they saw on Twitter pictures people were taking inside, like when the shaman was inside the chamber and sitting there. Those pictures were up on Twitter. They saw them and said, "Hey, Dad, we're seeing things on social media that you're not being briefed on," and they were telling him about this and saying, "Hey, you got to do." What was happening is President Trump, who was the sitting president, was getting better intel on what was going on from his kids than he was getting from the people briefing him. So his kids weren't saying, "You're not doing enough, Dad. You got to do something, you son of a gun." They were saying, "We see on Twitter pictures people are posting from inside the Senate chamber. You won't believe this. You got to do." Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing about how could he stop it? President Trump went online and on television and told people to cut it out. He was cut offline. The tech giants cut him off of all social media. They would not allow him to communicate on social media. He tried to do it on other accounts, and they blocked those accounts too. They would not put him on television either. And what happened is the media, both social media and the television media, they cut off all lines of communication from the sitting president of the United States during a crisis. In fact, those social media giants, like the people that used to run Twitter and the cable news and the networks, they may have committed crimes, in my opinion, doing that. Okay, that's like they cut off. He could not communicate with people and do anything because they cut him off.
I would say to Ron DeSantis and other people, you had Black Lives Matter and Antifa terrorizing the country for 3 or 4 months, maybe longer, like a whole summer. It went on a couple years ago. It was frightening, going from city to city. I don't remember any politician on the left coming out and demanding they stop ever. I mean, did you ever hear Adam Schiff or Maxine Waters or any of them saying you need to stop? You need to No, they encouraged it. So how come it's okay for them to sit back when that was happening weekend after weekend after weekend, and they did absolutely nothing to stop it? But then you have a one-time event that's happening in real time where none of us really knew what was going on exactly. And like you said, and Trump was cut off from social media. Why is he held to the standard of, that he has to? I know he's the president and everything, and it was Washington, and I get it. But like I said, these other groups were terrorizing people for months and months and months. It was becoming a regular thing where every weekend we knew was happening. I didn't see anybody come on TV and tell them to cut it out. AOC, none of those guys. In fact, they remember Maxine Waters, take it to the streets, and Chuck Schumer, never let them rest. Yep. They were encouraging that kind of behavior. So how come that nobody's holding them accountable? I didn't see Trump going on TV saying, encouraging that kind of behavior. Exactly. He didn't do that, and he came out and did speak that day. He came out and did say something that day. They did nothing about the violence that we were dealing with for months and months at a time. So, I don't understand. But, exactly. The double standard strikes
and he did come out, and they cut him off of television. He tried to stop it. And so far as holding him responsible, when Bernie Sanders' campaign worker shot Steve Scalise and tried to assassinate the entire Republican baseball team, while Steve Scalise was in surgery, every media outlet said this has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders. They let him come out and say, I don't endorse this. And it was like, you can't control your people. Exactly. But Trump is held to the standard that he's responsible for everything that somebody does.
And even if he did come out, the people that were going through, we know that whole story behind that. If say he did come out and say something that day in the late afternoon. But so I don't know what they're talking about, but say he came out 2 hours earlier. Okay. Would it have changed anything? I don't think so. No. I think when the momentum was going and things had kicked in and certain plans came to fruition and fell into place, and y'all know what I'm talking about, there's no stopping that train wreck that was happening. All that was well planned. And that was well orchestrated by certain things.
See, here's the deal.
And we all know what I'm talking about.
Here's the thing.
There's nothing he could have done to have stopped that.
No matter what Trump said.
It was orchestrated.
No matter what Trump said or did, those Capitol Police still would have walked the shaman into the Senate chamber.
That's exactly right.
To that photographer.
That's exactly right.
Now, I want to thank our Patreon supporters for their support of the program. And, Patreon supporters, I often mention get access to commercial-free editions of each and every podcast episode. And also, Kathy and I, on occasion, do podcasts that are only available to Patreon supporters. In fact, if you go to the Patreon page right now, those of you who are Patreon supporters, or if you become one, we just uploaded a new podcast, a complete full-length podcast with Kathy and I talking about a lot of things we're not going to talk about here. That is a podcast exclusive to Patreon supporters. It's not that you obviously get the commercial-free podcast. You'll get this one. But the podcast before this one on Patreon is a Patreon supporter-only podcast. So if you become a patron, you get access to all of that exclusive content. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the episode description. And there's also a link on my website, BrianCraigShow.com. Our top Patreon supporters get a live on-air thank you shout-out on every episode. So the names you will hear now are our top Patreon supporters. I want to thank Andrew and Connie, Christine, ETW, Chuck, D, Pamela, Rick, Nick, Wesley, Macho, Rome, Wisconsin, Mike P, Melissa, Carlos, Paulette, John, Arctic Fox, Heather, David, and Richard. These are our top Patreon supporters. Thank you so much, guys. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at BrianCraigShow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. So funny, we were talking about in the last segment, and I pull up Breitbart, headline story, Gangsters in the White House. James Comer raises concerns of Biden racketeering. And racketeering is like what the mafia do, right? House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer has raised concerns that the Biden family could be involved in racketeering, which is the act of operating a business with illegally derived income through money laundering. It's pretty serious stuff here, and they've got all the documents. Speaking on the Verdict with Ted Cruz podcast, Comer revealed the Biden. All these Republican Congress people have podcasts. Matt Gaetz has a podcast. Ted Cruz has a podcast.
We have a podcast.
I know. We're not even in Congress. Speaking on the Verdict with Ted Cruz podcast, Comer revealed the Biden family business caused 6 banks to flag, with an L, over 170 large amounts of money in suspicious activity reports to the United States Treasury for review. 20 more banks than previously were known. Suspicious activity reports often contain evidence of potential criminal activities, such as money laundering and fraud. Comer, who is the former bank board member of 10 years. See, now this is interesting. You know, this is something I forgot about Comer. He's a banker. So he's the perfect guy to be on this committee.
I've never even heard of him before this. Where did he come from?
I've heard of him here and there, but him being a banker, this is his area of expertise.
Absolutely.
Comer, who was a former bank board member of 10 years, said from his experience that just 2 suspicious activities reports would make it difficult for an average citizen to open a bank account. Suspicious activity reports are known as SARSs or SARS, occur very seldom, Comer explained. How many suspicious activity reports were issued concerning Hunter and Joe, the Biden family? Senator Ted Cruz asked. Comer, over 170.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So
wow.
Yeah. So
170 suspicious activities.
Yeah.
They need to have an investigation, and
the guy needs to be forced to resign.
This is insanity.
I mean, we have a mafia don as the president.
Incredible. Meanwhile, with Trump, they have zero evidence, just accusations.
Asking about Biden's crimes, he got impeached for.
Incredible.
Ted Cruz asked Comer, you were on the bank board for 10 years, and they issued 2 suspicious activities reports. He says if you had 2 against you, it would be hard for you to open an account somewhere else, Comer explained. There wouldn't be any bank that would want to have you as a customer because it's not worth the paperwork. And the Bidens have 170. You know how they're going after harassing these poor pool guys and maintenance guys at Mar-a-Lago? They should go, these bankers that he's dealing with are crooks. The Bidens are dealing with criminal bankers that do business with money launderers.
It is amazing what these two get away with.
Kathy, this is how El Chapo does banking.
It's just amazing because he is so ensconced in the deep state. He's been a senator for so long.
Yeah.
He's so protected. It's just incredible to me.
What he gets away with?
People must really be afraid of confronting him, because why has nobody done anything about this? Way before he was vice president or anything, he must really, I don't know. People are really afraid to come forward. So
Comer went on. He said, when the bank files a suspicious activity report, you could understand this. That's inviting the regulators to come in and regulate the bank. And that is the last thing that a bank would want.
Oh boy.
So, I mean, that's crazy. So whoever these bankers are, they're crooks.
Yeah.
They got criminal bankers that were knowingly doing money laundering, it sounds to me.
Crazy.
Cruz asks, what triggers a suspicious activity report? He says, you're a banker. What triggers a suspicious activity report? And this is what Comer says. A large transaction that comes out of the blue. He says, I'll use the Robinson Walker account, for example, because that was the first bank account we subpoenaed. This is a Biden bank account. Rob Walker is a Biden associate who Comer says funneled money from China and Romania in March. Comer obtained suspicious activities reports on Walker, who received a $3 million wire transfer from that Chinese energy company. In 2017, in turn, 4 Biden family members, Hunter, James, that's the brother of Joe, Haley, is Haley the daughter-in-law? Is Haley is Bo's widow?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And an unidentified Biden received a collective $1.3 million cut.
It's like The Sopranos here.
Mm-hmm. He says, now remember, this account never had much activity in it over the course of 10 years. It maintained around $40,000 or $50,000 balance.
They had it there ready to go.
Then one day out of the blue, they get a $3 million wire.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So there's no activity in the bank. It's had $40,000-$50,000 in it, which is not nothing, but, And then one day, a $3 million deposit from China in this bank account that's never gotten a foreign wire before. So that sets off sirens. And Comer, he goes on. This is on the Ted Cruz podcast, which sounds like a great podcast. I want to add it to the playlist, Kathy. Comer believes the Biden family opened more than 20 shell companies to hide payments and launder money. I mean, this is one of the most detailed, high-level money laundering operations in history.
I tell you, I blame Barack Obama for encouraging this and bringing this guy into the White House. He bears some responsibility. And believe me, if he didn't know he was a crook when he brought him in, he certainly learned it quickly after. And I know people have said that he had concerns. And he should come out and say something about it and speak against it. He never will, but he should. He owes it to the American people to say, he's a criminal. I've seen him do it, and he needs to go. But that's not going to happen.
Well, it really makes me wonder, because I always thought it was odd that Obama picked Biden as his running mate. They were 2 sitting U.S. senators. That's very unusual.
Well, and then he said the thing about him being a clean black man, which was ridiculous.
So I don't know what dirty dealing went on with Obama to bring Biden in the fold, but
somebody convinced him because of the unions. They said you need him for the unions. He's a union guy back then, and that was his big thing. It's like when Kennedy. Do you think Kennedy liked LBJ? No, but he needed the South.
Yeah,
that's why they make these politics make strange bedfellows. As
I
they
guess.
say.
I guess. So anyway, so Biden set up more than 20 shell companies to hide payments and launder money. Just after 24 hours the next day, the Bidens start wiring incremental payments to different Biden shell companies, Comer said. When you set up a bunch of shell companies for the sole purpose to launder money, that is called racketeering. That's what the mafia, you always hear racketeering charges and with all the mafia bosses. According to legal experts, the law defines 35 offenses that constitute racketeering, including gambling, murder, kidnapping, arson, drug dealing, and bribery. In 1987, Giuliani, who was the United States attorney in New York, indicted the 5 families under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. That's RICO. When you hear RICO, that's Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. 8 of them were convicted by Giuliani under RICO. So that's what Biden is doing. And here we have them charging Trump again and again with these ridiculous new charges that he told them to delete the video at Mar-a-Lago, which we know is not true. It's
just incredible.
There's no gain for Trump to delete any video from Mar-a-Lago from the break-in. He wants people to see how they disrespected the home of a president of the United States.
Maybe they're saying he deleted video before the break-in.
That's not what they said.
That he's covering up the moving. So what got on film exactly? Trump
vague about
moving boxes.
They're vague. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's
it's called moving. It's called moving.
I don't think it says on the outside of the boxes, this is classified. They have one guy that's a new employee. I'd like to know who vets these people here.
Yeah.
He's a relatively new employee, some low-level guy, and he's coming forward now. Who is this guy? Where'd he come from? And why, what's his motivation for saying this?
Exactly. It's so insane and so hard to believe that with everything that's going on with Biden, where they have documents of the crimes that the 5 families were
incredible. And it just gets getting worse and worse. More stuff. The onion keeps peeling.
But it's Trump that keeps getting charged.
That's why he's getting charged. Look what happened when he questioned Zelensky about Biden. He got impeached. Anytime that something comes out about the Bidens, Trump's going to get charged. They're going to add more charges to Trump. That's what they do. That's what they do.
It really
Liberals don't care. Liberals don't care. They think that Trump's the worst guy. He's the criminal. Mm-hmm. And everything with Biden, he just loves his son. Yeah. Okay. I guess if that's the standard, then I guess if you love your kid, you can commit any crime you want.
Well,
they love their kid.
It really makes me wonder how out of it Biden really is, because if he was as out of it as he appears to be,
I think it's an act.
Why would they be so afraid of him? How would he?
Remember, there was that mobster
them?
You told me that was pretending to be insane.
No, there was
he went to jail. He went to the courtroom in his pajamas or something.
Back in the 90s, somebody listening to remember the name. I don't remember the name. I don't feel like looking it up. But there was a mafia boss in New York, and he was facing indictment. So he would walk around the streets of New York in his pajamas like he was out of it. And
right. So that's what I think maybe he's doing. So people think he's a feeble old man. Maybe that walk, and maybe it's all an act, not beyond the realm of possibility. I mean, if it is, it's a pretty good one, pretty convincing.
Well, but, if he's in that kind of condition, I don't see these people in Washington really being afraid of him like they are. Now, I want to play this
clip. He has a long relationship with a lot of people, and if he has relationships with these countries and these kind of people, he is a scary individual to go up against.
He is scary. It is frightening. I want to play this clip. This is someone we haven't talked about for a while, Ilhan Omar, saying one of the most racist things you probably ever have heard a member of the United States House of Representatives say.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
Okay. Here you have a woman. I just think about this. That first, this makes no sense. She is a black woman. She is from Africa, right? If white men, which the majority of this country is white, if this country is so dangerous and so racist, why would she leave a country in Africa that's a black country and come to such a racist place? Right. That just doesn't make sense. And, I'll tell you the thing about her. She believes that. That is a hard...
You think so? Or do you think she's just pandering to people?
No, she's a racist.
Yeah.
She's just a hardcore, old-fashioned racist. Yeah. And I say this to people a lot of times, and a lot of people don't get this, and it doesn't make sense to people. It makes sense to me. Maybe this doesn't make sense. But my experience has been with racists like that. She's a racist. Racists don't think they're racist. Racists just think that they see reality. They see things the way they are. And that's it. They don't say, I'm a racist. I don't like white people. They just think that they see how the things really are, and that's just their experience and observation, and it's true.
Well, speaking of stupid things, if you live in New York City soon, you will no longer be able to get ketchup packets and napkins.
Why?
In your fast food deliveries. Probably the government, Mayor Adams, are probably because of climate change and pollution.
Climate change?
And sure, because the ketchup packets use, what do they use, like a plastic thing to put the ketchup in, and then the napkins wasting paper. I don't know. And it's like the soda thing. Just, this is the deal. Liberals cannot stop wanting to control.
The reason they're doing
personality defect.
What they're doing is Mayor. I just looked this up while you were talking. Mayor Adams. They have this new skip the stuff law. The law aims to reduce the amount of unnecessary plastic and other items that food establishments give to customers. They say in the United States, over 100 million plastic utensils are used daily. and some analysts estimate Americans waste $40 billion. So what happens when I go to McDonald's for takeout? I can't get a ketchup packet?
Well, I guess not.
What if I go to KFC and I get the mashed potatoes and gravy and they give you that plastic spork? They don't give you that in New York now?
Or you have to ask for it. I'm not sure, but it said they're going to ban them. So how are you supposed to eat your food?
You know, I saw the other day.
You got to have ketchup with your fries.
You and I were watching a clip from the 5, and I think it was from the 5, and it had Jessica Tarloff, the liberal there. Mm-hmm. And she said something that you would think was a joke. I saw this on Twitter. You guys can probably find this on Twitter because the reason this was circulating around is it shows how stupid and out of touch with reality Jessica Tarloff is. Jessica Tarloff, who I think is CIA, she went to the London School of Economics. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what American goes to the London School of Economics. That seems like a CIA place, you know? But she was with Bloomberg when Bloomberg banned the sodas. Remember this? He banned Big Gulps and all of that. And she actually said, Jessica Tarloff this week, that she misread that she thought public opinion would be in favor of them banning Big Gulps and sodas.
Why would she think that?
Because they're in this weird well,
they think they're doing everybody a favor.
She doesn't probably drink Big Gulps. You know, and so she just thinks they're a terrible thing. So everybody must think they're terrible.
Well, he seems to be having a war on restaurants in New York, which is really strange because there are so many restaurants.
Wish they'd have a war on rats in New York.
Yeah, there are so many restaurants in New York City. That's a lot of voters, and he's banning those gas stoves, which pretty much every restaurant uses to cook is a gas stove. That's what restaurants and chefs prefer because it cooks the food much faster than an electric stove. An electric stove takes a while to heat up, and you can't keep turning it on or off, and you can't leave it on all day. A gas stove, you turn on, boom, the gas is there. My grandma had a gas stove, and she told me, she said, it's just hot. It's instantly hot. You don't have to wait for it to warm up. So that's why they prefer that. So he's banning that. Now they're banning the ketchup and the napkins, so people can't get those. I don't know if it's a total ban or if you have to ask for it. I remember for a while there was a thing where restaurants were limiting. They wouldn't give you condiments automatically. And I have no problem with a restaurant doing that because it costs money. And if they have a rule, don't give them ketchup unless they ask for it. I would, as a restaurant owner, I would be like totally fine with that. It's expensive. It adds up. But to make it where it's a law where they cannot do it no matter what, I think is absolutely ridiculous. I think as a business, they just cannot help but be in your life, controlling every
they know what's
thing.
Best. They know what's best.
What he could do is this. He could say, look, you own a restaurant. I encourage you to be responsible to the environment. And if you could cut down on use of plastics and maybe cut back a little for sake of the environment, I'd appreciate it. Or come up with some recycling program where they put recycle bins around town for people to put their plastic forks or things like that. But to ban and just be like, you can't do it. I mean, our daughter, she lives in LA now, outside of LA. She went to order a shower head for a dual-headed shower head, which is what we have here.
On Amazon.
The kind that you have the main one and then you have a separate one.
Like a water pick connected
that you take off, right? The hose, she cannot get it delivered there.
They're illegal.
They're illegal on Amazon. So I said, well, I can't send you one because that might be a problem through the mail.
But so marijuana you can buy in LA.
You can buy marijuana. And she just thought that was the craziest thing. And there's little things like that she's noticing in California. And she'll call me. She said, Mom, liberals are just nuts. She said, everything looks good on paper, but when you put it to work, it's ridiculous. But she said the people there are so used to it. She said they don't know any better. This is their world. They don't know. It's like they don't know any difference.
Well, this thing with
so it's totally normal.
This thing with the plastics in New York with the Civil War. Me personally, if I go to a restaurant, I like using plastic utensils because I really don't like using utensils that a lot of people use, and I don't know how well they get washed. I remember when I was younger and I used to go to bars all the time. Now I just go, 3 or 4 times a week. But
Let's face it, Brian, we only eat at restaurants that have plastic utensils.
Yeah, I know. It's true. We don't eat at fancy places.
We don't eat at places pretty much that have silverware.
Now, like, if I go to a bar, I usually order a bottled beer.
Right.
And the reason I order bottles, not so much draft or get mixed drinks, is because when I used to go to bars all the time when I was young, like in my early 20s, I would sit at the bars and see them wash the glasses. It was ridiculous. They had like 3 sinks of water. They would just dip it in, and that was it. They didn't like wash it like I would at home. And I'm like, man, how many people have their mouth on that? So I really like plastic, but this is what I know about people in government when it comes especially to Democrats.
Yeah.
This thing with banning the plastic forks. There's more to it. There must be someone who is a lobbyist or a donor who views the plastic forks as competition. Same thing with Biden with the gas stoves. There's probably a donor, it's probably China, where they make the other kind of stoves, so they want to ban these. There's always a racket they're running.
Well, here's the irony. I just thought of it. They're banning ketchup, which is Heinz ketchup. That's the ketchup you get in restaurants. It's always Heinz. It's the best. And for the sake of climate, and John Kerry's the big climate czar, this is going to hurt his wife's business. I mean, don't you think that's a little ironic there that this is going to, let me tell you, if they ban ketchup packets there and it catches on, that's a major hit to the Heinz Corporation, and they're doing it for climate change. Do you think this was his idea? I don't think so.
It's a weird thing.
Hitting a little too close to home.
Yeah.
I mean, New York City, how many ketchup packets are consumed in New York City alone on a daily basis? I would venture to say thousands. There are so many restaurants there, probably more than any other city in the world. There's a restaurant literally like every probably 3 feet. There's you know what I mean? Back to back. They have restaurants everywhere. How many ketchup packets are bought at those restaurants every month?
Who knows?
A lot. And now they're banning them, so that's going to cut into Heinz ketchup money. Does he care? I'm sure his wife does. She might not be happy about it.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a little ironic there.
You are listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, broadcasting from sunny South Florida. Brian is joined by his wife and co-host, Kathy. Follow Brian on social media at briancraigshow.com. And now, Brian and Kathy.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host, Kathy. So they've been trying to tarnish the reputation of Jason Aldean over this song because they edited the video. Well, Jason Aldean was forced to edit the footage in his video. Try that in a small town. Let me read this article.
Yeah, I saw that they took out 6 seconds.
Mm-hmm. The footage in question that was removed is a brief series of clips from Fox 5 out of Atlanta, which shows BLM rioters violently protesting in the streets. Sources have told TMZ that the company that produced the video reached out to Fox, I guess they have an ownership stake in this, back in May and asked for permission to use the 6 seconds of news footage. Fox reportedly asked for more information, specifically the lyrics of the song, but the production company sent Fox a link to the song rather than the lyrics in writing. Okay, they couldn't click the link and listen. A week ago, Fox reached out to the production company and asked them to edit out the footage to avoid legal action, and the production company complied.
Wow.
Okay, they re-edited "Try That in a Small Town" music video.
Who are they going to be sued by?
Well, the owners of the footage. Replaces the BLM riot footage projected on the front of a courthouse building with shots of Aldean performing the song. So it was footage that was blown up, projected on the building itself. You know, there's Try That in a small town. It's really amazing to me because when you listen to the people attacking Jason Aldean, what they're doing is justifying the violent actions, right?
Yeah.
They're saying, well, these are people that are just, they got something to say.
That's what Goldberg said. She said they're helping.
Yeah.
I guess destroying black businesses. I remember on the news, they had a woman who owned a beauty salon, this older black woman, and she was crying. BLM destroyed her business. And she said, I don't know how destroying my business helps me and helps my community.
Exactly.
She said, these are my people doing this to me. And she said, how does this help?
I remember that.
And I felt so bad for that woman. So, Whoopi Goldberg, shame on you. She should have reached into her pocketbook and said, you know what, I'm going to rebuild her business for her. But no, BLM was helping the community. I mean, these people are mentally ill. They live in an alternate universe.
Now, Joe Biden did something a little shocking today. Biden acknowledged the 4-year-old grandchild that Hunter had with London Roberts, that's the former stripper. In a statement to People, Biden said, "Our son Hunter and Navy's mother London are working together to foster a relationship that is in the best interest of their daughter, preserving her privacy as much as possible going forward. The best thing for this child is to stay the hell away from the Biden family."
She was better off.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, Jill and I only want what is best for our grandchildren, including Navy. So this is the first time that Biden has acknowledged
because
this girl.
He got so much bad publicity about it, and they even wrote about it in some liberal publications that, that he was shameful. The thing that did it was they dedicated a book or something. Jill Biden dedicated a book or something to all her grandchildren, or dedicated something and listed their names.
Yeah.
And her name, Navy, was not in it, which I think is kind of a cool name. I like it.
I think it's a cool name.
I like it. I like the color Navy. I know she's named after the military branch probably, but I do like the color. But so that was what it was they listed their grandchildren. That was part of the catalyst that got people upset. I mean, I don't understand the Bidens, and I don't ever want to understand them. But it's weird that that happened, and then Hunter went and met with her, went to court. She ended up getting a quarter of the money he was paying. It went from $20,000 to $5,000. So he made some kind of deal in that courtroom to pay her less money, and probably part of the deal was that the daughter would have to be brought into his life. Yeah. And he probably made that deal so he wouldn't have to give her as much money. That's what I'm thinking. But these people don't do anything for anybody other than themselves.
Where are the
he sees her as illegitimate. He's like old-fashioned thinking.
What he sees is the mother, because she was a stripper, is just a sex worker / prostitute and not worthy of the Biden name. Like, it's such an honorable thing.
Exactly.
These people are scummy. Now, I think it's so ridiculous that they've had these UFO hearings over the weekend. And I saw the one clip of the witness. He said they found non-human remains. Well, that could be a dog. What does that mean? This I don't understand why they're having these hearings. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's a distraction from this." No, these other stories are all over the news. I do believe that it is possible that there is life elsewhere in the universe. I believe that is certainly possible. But
I don't.
But aliens are not coming to the Earth.
I don't know what the motivation is behind this. It's bizarre.
I don't know why they're making such a big deal about it. If aliens were coming to the Earth, okay, first off, they would be so much more advanced than we could possibly even imagine. We would be like ants to them. But forgetting about that, the UFO thing was a craze, like Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster back in the 60s and in the 70s. And back then, you'd get grainy photographs of things and everything else, and people understood because of the technology at the time. Today, I've got on my iPhone, I've got a camera on that iPhone that takes the most incredible pictures in pitch black, right? Because they got those new filters. If aliens and things were coming to this planet, we wouldn't have grainy images that you can hardly see that are in black and white from military aircraft.
Well, you had a caller today, Jeff, from
we'd have 4K video and photos.
Or yesterday, and I had said to you the other day, I said I had a theory. It's crazy, but I think all this alien talk is to pull people away from religion, and you said that was nuts. And then Jeff from Maine called and said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That this is a way of planting the seed that there is no God.
Yeah.
And I'm still stick to that. Because you cannot believe in God and believe in aliens at the same time.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
Why?
Because there's no mention of that in the Bible. There's nothing biblical about that.
There's no mention of America in the Bible.
You cannot, because God is...
Of North America, I mean.
You cannot you cannot be a Christian and believe in aliens. There is no God.
Kathy.
I'm trying to explain it to you.
Okay.
God is the supreme being, okay?
Yeah.
That created this universe that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing in the Bible about him creating little green men or other creatures on other planets or anything like that, okay? He created man on earth, Adam, that's it. That's in the Bible. So when you tell people and young people and you start pushing this narrative that there's aliens, they're going to think, well, if there's aliens, if UFOs really exist and aliens really exist, then they're going to start thinking then we're all some experiment that the aliens are doing, and we're like in some I'm serious, and we're
like
some,
in Stephen King's
we're in some experiment that they're in charge of, that they're running, that there is no. This to me has to do with getting people off religion and starting to think of the world we live in and where we come from in a different way. That's how, and Jeff Remain agrees with
Well, I'm not disagreeing
I'm not
with you.
totally kooky.
And I'm not saying there's life elsewhere.
There's not.
But I do know this. If aliens were visiting the Earth with the technology that everybody has on their cell phones today, we would have incredible images and you would know exactly what it was. You understand what I mean? So I don't know why they're making such a big deal about it. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I don't believe that aliens have ever come to the Earth.
They don't exist.
And there's no evidence that they ever have. I did go – there was one place I went to in the world, which is to me one of the seven wonders, those the Nazca lines in Peru. I went there with my friend Joe years ago, and I went to Peru just to see those lines because back in the 70s, they made a movie, Chariot of the Gods, and there was an In Search Of episode over it. And there are these images that you can only see from the air, and they were not discovered until the 1920s. And, of course, all the conspiracy people say they were runways for the aliens, that the ancient humans in Peru built these runways for the alien spaceships. And when you fly over them, you can only see them from the air. One of them looks like an astronaut.
Right.
You know? Yeah. And so they've done – and I flew over the astronaut and everything. And then what they found out is that the Nazca lines are, because it's in a desert, were marking where there was water sources. You know, but I'm glad I saw it. You know, but it was a cool thing to fly over, even though I got sicker than I've ever been before. We flew in this twin engine aircraft, and a twin engine prop aircraft, and there was a pilot, these two Italian tourists, and me and my friend Joe. I have never flown in a small aircraft like this before, and I didn't realize how much wind and turbulence you get in these things. I flew
on one of those small planes to the Bahamas.
I'll never do it again.
It was very turbulent.
This is not an exaggeration. I filled up every vomit bag on the aircraft, and it's a small aircraft. I had to hold them, and it just wouldn't stop. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I'll never fly in one of those small things, but
oh my God, how fun!
Oh yeah.
But are you glad you went?
Yeah, I'm glad I went. I got to see it. Yeah, when you take a trip, Kathy, and something like that happens, it makes it more memorable.
Of course. I
don't mind it when these things happen, you know, when there's problems on a trip. But anyway, I really don't – I don't know if your theory is correct while they're pushing this UFO stuff all over the news and having congressional
hearings. There's a reason,
hearings.
And that's my theory.
Yeah.
So tell me what you guys
think. Really? I mean,
nuts? Why? I think it has to do with getting people
off Christianity
and thinking in terms of our place in the universe from a different point of view.
Maybe.
Brian, you got to understand, these people that are in charge of the government and these world leaders, all they do is sit in rooms all day and think about ways to F with people.
That's true.
And think about ways to mess with us, screw and have control. And this is another way to have control. I'm telling you, there are people that are going to start rethinking our place in this world and where we come from, because they believe now that they're going to start thinking, well, there must be aliens, so maybe there isn't a God. Because now there's aliens, and that gives me a whole new outlook. No, don't believe it.
Yeah, no, I don't believe it, but maybe that's why they're doing it. Well, listen, guys, let us know in the comments why you think that they're having these endless UFO hearings and talking about it in the news. And let us know if you believe that aliens are visiting the Earth or not, and why, if you think they are. I'd love to hear that. I'm Brian, always joined by my wife and co-host Kathy. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.